Alright guys, just like I said in my last video, I was going to do a more proper test with the Mutalist Cernos and Volt Shield with numbers and stuff to kind of explain what's going on. It's not really a bug, although there is some suspicious issues that I will discuss, as you'll see in a moment. First off, I just wanted to show the build, which is what you see here, which is speed holster and streamlined form. This actually increases our holster rate, so you can switch to like a secondary weapon that maybe has not enough crits, but a lot of crit damage, like the Nucor. Something you can now do easily with Arrow, but you have been able to with the Mutalist Cernos for quite a while now. As for the Mutalist Quanta, I think I said Cernos, the Mutalist Quanta build, it's just going to be a base build. I'm going to take my Riven off there for now. So we have a only 2.5% crit chance and a 1.5 critical multiplier, which is actually pretty pathetic. However, you'll see that it's boosted with the secondary bubble, which we'll discuss in a second here. And just like before, we're going to be testing it against level 150 Ancient Healers, but this time with no mods, so you can actually see the base stats. Now, if we fire at the leg, first I got to get rid of Volt's passive there. If we fire at the leg, we see that we get 28 damage, which is what you'd expect with the increase in slash damage. And if I manage to get a crit, you see that we get a crit of 42 damage, which is what we'd expect with a 1.5 multiplier. Nothing too serious, and as you can see, if I kept the full footage in there, it took a while for me to get one crit, but that's because we only have a 2.5% crit chance. Now, the benefits of this weapon is you can fire this bubble. Now, the bubble does three things. It increases the chance that you can crit by a flat amount. It increases a little bit of your base damage as electric damage. It used to be radiation, which arguably was actually really great, and now it's electric, which is kind of depressing. But it's still bonus damage, and it very marginally increases crit damage, and I'll show that in a second. When I fire the bubble now, I'm going to be doing 36 damage, which is an 8 increase, 8 electric damage increase, and you saw there I actually crit very easily, and it did 68 damage, which is actually not 1.5, but actually 1.52. So like I said, the base damage increases with electric, but it also marginally increases the crit damage by 0.02 or something like that. It's very marginal, but it does increase. Now, of course, the point of that video I made was talking about the interactions with Volt Shield. Now, I've known this for maybe 2 years now, but I've been just too lazy to really do a video on it, and then I lost my ability to until recently. But you'll see in a second. So basically, the test is, now we're just going to use his shield. No bubble for now. Now, if we fire at the leg, we do, well, I just did an electric crit, because it adds electric damage, just like the bubble, but now we're up to 40 damage, which is a little bit more than the Mutalist Cernos, and it's adding 12 instead of 8 damage. As a percentage, I'm not sure what the percentage is, because I didn't bother to do that, but this is just base stats. And then if we get a crit, you'll notice, if I do get one, not that one, so the shield just went away. Now, if we manage to get a crit, we should see, come on, it still will, okay, there we go, 121, which is much more than the Mutalist Cernos. So we're getting a bigger damage boost and a crit boost. In fact, the crit damage is now with the shield 3.0 rather than 1.5. It doubles the crit damage of the weapon. Now, here's where the weird interactions come in. If we fire this Mutalist Cernos bubble, I better actually move this shield. Now, if we pop the bubble and make sure it is before the shield, when we fire, we notice that we now do 44 damage, which is a little bit more than the shield, but less than we would expect, about 4 damage or so less, because as you remember, that bubble adds 8 electric damage, but we're only seeing an increase of 4. And now if we get a crit with this bubble before the electric shield, you notice that it was 84. Which is, again, more than the bubble, but actually less than what we got with the shield. So for some reason, your damage is actually decreasing, or your base damage is increasing very slightly, and your crit damage is actually being reduced for whatever reason. Now, if we place the shield, and we make sure that the bubble is after the shield, now we notice that our base damage is still 44, but we get a 133 crit, which is a lot more, or well, marginally more than just the shield. So this is actually the proper way to do it, and the bonuses are now applying. And something I forgot to mention is actually, when you have the Mutalist Cernos bubble before, and you actually get that 130, or 84 crit, This is actually 1.9 critical multiplier for some reason, instead of a 1.5 or 3 or more than what you should expect. So that's kind of interesting. And I had to explain that because if you actually make the bubble go after the shield, the critical damage is actually taken over by the shield, so we're getting the 3.0 crit damage of the shield instead of the 3.0 plus the minor bonus of the bubble. So for whatever reason, this build is actually the best, but you still lose out damage somehow, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. Now let's talk about my Riven mod and why I like it and why I've basically kept it like this. So normally I don't care about projectile flight speed because if you get electricity damage or heat damage or blast damage, all you need is 1 or 2 procs and the enemy kind of stays still, so you can just lead your shots anyways. I really don't have a problem with projectile damage or projectile speed at all. But this actually helps for a reason I will show, and I've showed this Riven mod before and why it's pretty good, but for this video, some of you might not have seen that video, so I just wanted to reiterate this. It also has reload speed, which is important because you're going to be using a lot of your magazine, since this is an automatic weapon, and you're going to be firing the bubbles, which use ammunition as well. The best part of this, however, is the 143% critical damage, which boosts our crit damage by 1.5 to 3.6, which is great, and you'll see that increase in a moment. Now, just like before, I'm going to start firing, and you're going to notice, after I get rid of this Volt's passive, that we're still doing 28 damage, because obviously the Riven mod only increases crit damage. But if I manage to get a crit, even with just the normal fire, we actually get 101, which is, if you remember before, it was 42. Now it jumped up to 101, and that's without the bubble. Now we're going to add the bubble and fire, and you notice that it goes up to 36, but then our crit goes up to 162, which is higher than all of our tests so far, and that's just with unmodded and just this bubble. Now we do the same thing we did before, and we remember that if we put the bubble after the shield, we get more damage. So with this Riven, this projectile flight speed, it doesn't just affect the bullets, it affects the range at which you can apply the bubble. So now I can stand way back here, hopefully, and fire the bubble. Yep, and it actually goes past the shield, which is a lot more convenient. And now if I fire, we get an 800, oh no, sorry, because that was the bonus pass, and we get 324 on a crit, which is excellent. And remember, this is unmodded. We'll do this again, and you can see, and then if we manage to hit the head too, we double to 1,000 damage. Then we get, yep, okay, no, that was correct. We get 1,000 something, 1,294, which is actually pretty good on modded. Now, let me show you a modded build, just to let you get an idea of how much damage this weapon can do. And just for context, this is the build I normally would use because you have the heat for the stunning, like I said, so enemies at range, you could set them on fire and then just hit them with consecutive bullets while they're standing still. Now we do the same thing we did before. We pop down the shield, we make sure the bubble is after the shield, and then we let loose, and you notice we're doing 4,000 damage on a headshot crit, which absolutely decimates these level 150 ancient healers, which is actually pretty impressive, considering this gun is at base not really much better than the standard breath, but this bubble combined with Bolt Shield really makes it powerful. I suppose the biggest thing to say about this weapon is it's not a great weapon. It's not one of the best. Even with the crit boost, it's unreliable in a mission for several reasons. Obviously, you're going to have enemies from all sides, not just directly in front of you, although you can move around to aim the bubble where you want it to be. Another reason is you can stack these up to 3, but as you can see here, when you cast another bubble, they try to attract each other, and often it'll blow the original bubble sky high or into the ground. Like if I do this, now it's way behind me. Thankfully it hit a wall, so I could stand like right here and get that crit bonus. But normally this thing's going to be flying all over the place, and even worse, if somebody hits it with a melee weapon, it actually bounces away like a beach ball. So if someone's running melee, which some people often do, they might go into a crowd of enemies that you're trying to boost with this weapon, and then they just hit the bubble away, unfortunately. One of the things I'd like them to do is the first bubble that you fire is unmovable, and other bubbles simply attract to it, not the other way around where they attract each other, because this makes it pretty unreliable. So I hope this video kind of explained this issue that I've had with this weird interaction with the shield and the bubble. But if you are running something like Bowband, this is actually a pretty perfect weapon, especially now, because you gain that damage bonus, that base damage bonus to enemies in the field, and the field helps make it so enemies don't move around, so you can just simply aim right at them, just like I am now, and then just fire the bubble. So yeah, thanks for watching.